Hello and welcome to historic Turner Hall, where we are talking with all the candidates for mayor of Milwaukee.
And this afternoon, we have State Senator Lena Taylor joining us. And I'm going to go straight into it. You say on your website, if elected mayor, you are committed to working to develop innovative, unlikely employment and career paths, as well as funding to increase post-secondary education for the city's residents. What are these unlikely employment and innovative ideas that you speak about?
So pre-apprenticeships, pathways using, I would say like a 4-tier process. Community service, being able to do pre-apprenticeships, apprenticeships, and into not only employment but entrepreneurship. And we're doing it, actually, doing it mostly for young people, and Teens Grow Greens is an example of that. But we've also done work with MATC to allow for individuals to get, I think they call them certificate badges for doing certain work along the lines that we're talking about. Northcott Neighborhood House is really exploded with urban agriculture and with arborist program, which is kind of like urban forestry.
You really have been big on green jobs.
That is correct. Green jobs, I know, is the way of the future. And if we're going to be in the front line of being able to have employment and entrepreneurship in this city, we're going to have to make sure that we touch those industries. Innovation, forestry, agriculture, the trades, and health, I think are the industries that we have to make sure that we're tied to.
This would require then to get some of the schools set up to get this in front of students who would think this is a good idea. But you mentioned something, funding to increase post-secondary education for city residents. Funding is always an issue, and the resources are limited. What kind of funding are you talking here, and where are we going to get that?
First of all, we're already doing it in some of our schools, not just in MPS, but even in some of the suburban districts that are connected to the 4th Senate District. In particular, we have Vincent High School, but we have several other schools that are ag schools outside of Vincent. And when I say where is the money going to come from, agriculture is an $850 billion industry, Charles. And I need you to know we need to tap in. Our school. No, not taxing them, just taking advantage of some of the resources that are on the table that we've not even taken advantage of. Literally, MPS has applied for multiple grants that are $1 million grants that they might be able to get. And I'll end with saying we also have businesses that are developing this in this area, and we've not been taking advantage of helping those businesses to grow and grow to scale even, to help more people in our community.
Senator, when you talk about tapping into the resources that we just don't know about, and again, Charles is always big on revenue, where are we going to get it? Yes. Let's talk about Madison. How are you going to convince your former colleagues to say a sales tax increase for the city? And how would you spend that money?
Let me say a couple of things. The first is sales tax. You know, it's an oppressive kind of approach. And I'm not saying that I disagree with it, but it's a Band-Aid on cancer. Okay? We actually need to get our share of shared revenue. The truth of the matter is we are getting about what we got in 2009-ish. So we have to really show my colleagues what the numbers are and show my colleagues what the numbers should be. And I think we have to get the county and municipalities all to be a part of that because we're not getting our share of shared revenue.
How do you shift a mindset in Madison that for decades has had a deaf ear to the needs of Milwaukee and that whole share revenue?
Well, one of the reasons I think there's been a deaf ear is because the prior leadership did not really try to figure out how to get to the center. So one of the things I can say that I've done as a legislator is be able to work across the aisle. Doesn't mean that I'm going to get my way, but it does mean that I have relationships that I think will matter. And I think the other piece is that we've just not sometimes put those numbers in front of people. It's just the truth of the matter.
So when you talk about that communication, that ability to form partnerships in Madison, right now you got a Democratic governor and you got a Republican legislature. So who do you have to win over here to get the deal done?
Sometimes it's going to be one, sometimes it's going to be the other, Charles. The truth of the matter is we've just got to make sure the facts get out there, and we have to show that we're going to be better, more efficient with the use of our dollars.
So shared revenue is where you want to go to. What is the potential there, dollar amount, and then where do you spend that money? Because we haven't talked about public safety, we haven't talked about other city needs. to get or use this shared revenue?
So I think there are several funding formulas that are not fair to Milwaukee that need to be challenged and need to be looked at. So I think we have to ask for a review of that, both at the state level, and if the DOJ needs to participate at the federal level, we need to do that. When we get those proceeds, one of the things I want to make sure that we do is help our money to make money for us. So what does that mean? If I have to do work on lead laterals, which we need to do in order to reduce the lead that individuals are getting, which I think is directly connected to the crime, if we're going to do that, those companies that get the contracts to do the lead lateral removal or replacement, then we have to make sure that those companies are helping to have our students and adults be interns and learn how to do that skill, that they're using they're a prime contractor, they're using subcontractors that are people that are from the city. We have to build capacity with every dollar that we spend, Charles. And that's something that's not been happening.
Let's continue in this revenue vein. You talk about sources of revenue. One of the main sources that you'd be working with in a budget as a mayor is, of course, property tax. But we know that in the center city, a majority of the residents who live there are renters, right? And home ownership brings about not only tax revenue, but a sense of pride. Where do you see in your plan to implement more home ownership in the city of Milwaukee so that we have better quality of life for all Milwaukeeans?
Shannon, thank you so much for asking that question, because that's key. If we're going to transform the way Milwaukee is, we're going to have to deal with home ownership. One of the things that I'd like to do, in the same way that I want to see pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship and that pathway that I spoke about from community service through that kind of work, I want to see that happen for home ownership also, and entrepreneurship. I'd love for you to look up Inslee, Alabama. They have a program that I want to be able to implement here in Milwaukee that allows our young people to use their sweat equity to learn not only the trades, but to become a homeowner. Just imagine it with me, if you will, a 19-year-old coming home to tell their mom or their dad or both, their granny, that they've put in sweat equity, that they've learned how by going to work on a property, how to work on a property, but because of that, that they're going to be a homeowner, and that sweat equity that they put in is going to help them to be a homeowner. So that right there is going to flip wealth in a way that poverty is entrenched in this city.
Sounds a little bit like Habitat for Humanity. What's different?
It is. The difference is with Habitat for Humanity, they are doing the work. The city would be more of the entity that's doing that work. And they don't always allow individuals to use their sweat equity just for home ownership. We were going to do it, they do it for just home ownership. We're going to do it and connect it to, you have to go to school. And so that we're having someone grow in their understanding of financial literacy, their role in the community, and to your point, pride in being a homeowner. So it's slightly different because it allows it to be from the volunteerism, but it's coupled with encouraging them to go to school.
Just about anyone in this race is talking about public safety and how to change that. When you look at your first 100 days in office, if elected, you sit down with Chief Norman. What's your big ask, and how would you hold them accountable to deliver on that?
A bunch of people are talking about it, but the difference is I've actually done the work. So one, High Point, North Carolina model is a model that I brought to the city when I went to the Harvard School of Government, and I came back and I shared it with Nan Haggerty. She liked it. She actually tried to implement it. But what we did wrong in the previous administration is we didn't include the community effectively enough, and we did not provide resources so they could wrap around people. That program alone has taken violent crime, many of the things like the cars being stolen and so many shootings, the homicides, 70% reduction. We know that 20% of the people are creating 80% of the problem. So the High Point, North Carolina model, if I was to give it a name, it's kind of like, let's make a deal. I've got all the intelligence to lock you up, Charles. You can either go another path where we can help connect you with work and put you on a pathway to work or entrepreneurship, or we got a nice jail cell for you. Which would you like, sir? And most people are going to choose to go a different path. We don't just do it, we bring in the community. It's kind of like a restorative justice model that couples supports for individuals to go on a different path. So one, High Point, North Carolina model. Two, cop houses, something that we've done in the Racine Yes, area that's proven to be very successful. After you've used that house in the community, it can be converted to many things. I think they've converted one to a barbershop. So it can be converted to help entrepreneurship, which is rock bottom in this community. And we're not going to be able to, if I could, be candid, we're not going to be able to just job our way out of it. We're not going to be able to mass incarcerate our way out of it. We're going to have to help people become homeowners, help people become entrepreneurs, and help people change their mindset in this community.
Do you think there needs to be an elevated role of the Office of Violence Prevention? Because it appears that there's a lot of people working in silos. There are groups out there that are helping people in the community, and then there's also the police department. And when we talk about community policing, it sometimes appears that the two are not working together, but are necessary in order to change the trajectory of how crime is affecting Milwaukee.
You hit it right on the head. Silo is a major problem in this community. We need to align our work, even within the city. When I was dealing with pastors around the issue of tax and take, one department didn't know what the other department was doing. And so it's the same in policing. Police can't do this alone. We're going to have to make sure the health department is coordinated with them. And I think the Office of Violence Prevention, very, very easily can be a coordinator to be able to help with that. But it's not them alone. I need to say that we have to connect it to work and entrepreneurship in whatever we do. And we're going to have to help grow people on our law enforcement and our fire department in order to get diversity. So we're going to need to work with our schools, I think, a lot more closely in order to get our young people engaged.
When you look at the number of sworn officers in the city already, you're adding more, the city's adding more this year with COVID, one-time COVID money. So what is the workforce number that you think you would guarantee and hold to? And knowing the pension obligations that are coming to the city, would you guarantee that you would not make cuts to the police department?
I can't guarantee anything until I see everything. And so that's the first thing I'm going to say. I don't want to make promises that I can't keep, but what I will say to you is making sure that we have enough officers in order to be able to have a city that people can be safe in is important. But at the root of everything that's happening is a crisis of mental health. It's a crisis of trauma that exists in this community. If people feel hopeless, if a wild animal feels trapped, the reaction is different. We're going to have to change the lack of hope that exists in this community in order to be able to change the direction that people go. I can't make you a promise on the number of anything I'm going to have. I don't even know what the real budget is yet, Charles.
But do you think we need more police or better police policies?
I think we need maybe all of the above, possibly. And I'm saying to you that I really want an opportunity to be able to look at things adequately. I don't get to see everything as a state senator that I'll see as a mayor, but I will tell you that I believe that we have to do things differently. And under the present chief, I believe that we've been moving in that direction. I'm really excited to see the response that he had to the ACLU and the DOJ recommendations for what the police department needs to do. We are still failing in not meeting all of those recommendations.
Too many stops, do you think, still?
The stops have also been challenged in several ways. You remember my son was stopped for taking a turkey to a neighbor. And it's still challenging for me to know that my son was stopped with a frozen turkey, but there are other individuals that have walked down the street and didn't get stopped, even though they may have said to the police, this person shot somebody, and they didn't necessarily get stopped, but my son got stopped. So, of course, there needs to be some difference, and it seems the chief has been the first to turn the page in a way that also asks for accountability from people from the community to be engaged.
Senator Lena, one of the most important things that a mayor has to do is unify a city. What do you tell those who are on the south side, the west side, and the east side, as well as the north side, about who you are as a leader to fight for all of Milwaukee and not just one section of Milwaukee? So
first of all, we need a Milwaukee that's strong. And if we neglect one portion of our city and in turn that affects all of us because individuals don't have access to opportunity, we see what that looks like. That's where we are. What I want to say to individuals is I want us to have a city that we all can be proud of. And that's the role that I'm going to play. I want to strengthen the portions of the city that have been challenged, that's challenging all of us to be able to wake up some days and wonder, my goodness, I mean, someone was actually just delivering. And in that process, she now feels uncomfortable. I need everybody to know that we all want the same things. Our kids want to play outside. We want to be able to, come home and not be disturbed, our peace be disturbed by bullet sounds or car crashes. That's no different, no matter if it's the north side, south side, the east side, or the west side. And I think the last thing I'll say is I didn't stay on the block that I have grown up on because I just couldn't go anywhere else. I did it because I love this place, and I am dedicated to trying to make us move in the right direction.
Rufus King, graduate.
That's right, King General in the house.
We thank you for making time. There are a lot of challenges facing the city, and we appreciate this opportunity to talk to you. Good luck.
Thank you so much.